Good morning and welcome to the March Cabinet meeting. I'm Councillor Miliel, the leader of the Council, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. I'd like to welcome members. I can't see any members of the public. Oh no, Amy's over there. Welcome members of the public who have given up their time to be here with us, and to officers, cabinet members and other councillors who are in the room and online. Before we start, I also want to acknowledge that this is Adam Richards' last meeting of Cabinet at BCP Council. Adam has served as Director of Finance at the Council since its formation, and having spent 40 years in local government finance, he's going to leave his role. Adam's been a huge support to Cabinet and to the wider Council, and I know I speak for Cabinet colleagues when I say that we have all valued his expertise, his dedication to good financial governance, his service to democracy, and for his patience in a very politically dynamic council. And we have had some huge successes in the last nearly 3 years, from lifting the best value notice, stabilising the council's finances and prioritising long-term financial sustainability whilst also delivering quality services to residents. And Adam's been at the heart of that transformation. So thank you, Adam, for guiding us through. We'll very much miss your sage advice and wish you all the best in your next steps. So I'm going to hand over to Democratic Services to go over the housekeeping for today's meeting. Sarah.
Thank you. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of the building in Bourne Avenue. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to agenda item 1, which is apologies. Unfortunately, Councillor Burton can't be with us today as he is away with the Local Government Association. So he is going to be joining online, which means we will move those children's papers to the start of the agenda so that Councillor Burton can present them, but they'll be proposed and seconded from within the room. On to agenda item 2, which is declarations of interest. I haven't received any, but as always, if any do come up, then please do let me know. Agenda item 3 is confirmation of the minutes, and we actually have 2 meetings of which to confirm the minutes. So those on the 4th of February and the 11th of February. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes of the meeting on the 4th of February, please?
Yes, Leader, happy to propose the minutes for the 4th of February.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And someone to second those ones?
Happy to second, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Can I ask if there is agreement that everything with those minutes is correct? No indication. Lovely, that's unanimous. And we also have those for the Budget Cabinet meeting on the 11th of February. Is there a proposer for those ones, please?
Yes, happy to propose the minutes for the 11th of February as well.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And someone to second?
Same again.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. And can I ask if those are all agreed by Cabinet? Lovely, thank you. Unanimous. So we'll move on to agenda item 4, which is public issues. There have been no petitions, questions or statements submitted to Cabinet on this occasion. So that was a quick item. Agenda item 5, recommendations from overview and scrutiny committees that are not otherwise included on the agenda. Can I ask the respective chairs if they have anything to report today, please? I can see Councillor Salmon is indicating, so please do come up, and then Councillor Rigby. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader, and good morning, everybody. So yes, I'm here to present a set of recommendations that have been developed by excuse me, a working group of the Overview and Scrutiny Board, and that were approved by the board at its last meeting last week. The consultation working group was established actually towards the end of 2024, initially to work alongside officers to support the development of the new consultation framework. This was a productive effort, and you'll see that the first recommendation in the paper relates to the adoption of a new code of good practice, which has been drafted by officers and supported with the input of the working group. However, the remit of the working group was then extended in the summer last year, when the group was asked to look at some examples of recent public consultations that had caused a certain amount of controversy, and to see if any recommendations could be made to improve processes and avoid similar situations from arising again. So this has therefore been a fairly lengthy process from start to finish, and the recommendations before you represent a lot of work from both officers and the working group members. I'd like to thank the officers that we worked with, including Isla and Lisa Stutchbury, and the scrutiny support officers for the time they invested in this piece of work. I don't propose to go through each of the recommendations in detail this morning, because I think they're laid out clearly in the paper. But I would like to reflect on a topic that I think was at the heart of a lot of our discussions as part of the working group, and that is the topic of trust. The working group felt that a lack of trust was really what was underpinning many of the problems that we've seen over some recent consultation exercises, both trust between members of different political groups and public trust. The recommendations therefore seek to address these trust issues in several ways. In terms of trust between elected members, the group recognised the challenge here, and that this is a cultural issue with no simple or quick solutions. However, after detailed discussions, we put forward recommendations that seek to promote transparency and inclusion, but also to reinforce expectations around confidentiality in a practical way. In relation to public trust, the group makes clear recommendations that wherever possible, the most rigorous and robust consultation methodologies should be used. The group found that open surveys attract largely those who feel very strongly about a given issue, which can lead to results that don't accurately reflect public opinion. Representative sample surveying is a much more robust and scientific measure of what those affected think about an idea or an issue, and also greatly reduces the risk of outside influence on a consultation by political campaigners. The group recognised that there is a cost consideration to using this type of consultation method, but we considered that the benefits of using more robust methods would vastly outweigh this. If we want to rebuild public trust in the way we do consultations at BCP, we need to demonstrate that we have changed and that we are serious about reflecting genuine public opinion. I therefore submit these recommendations to Cabinet and look forward to hearing your response in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. We will come back to scrutiny directly with the response. Thank you. Councillor Rigby.
Thanks, Leader. I'll be brief. This is just a quick one from our most recent meeting of the Environment and Place Overview and Scrutiny Board, and that's where we had the Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Strategy 2026 to 2031 update. Thanks to Councillor Wilson for bringing that to us early, with the Director of Service as well, Kelly Dean. And it was good to get eyes on it. So this is just to let you know that the committee's endorsed the Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Strategy 26 to 31 and asked if we can consider any further improvements ahead of consideration by the Cabinet in May. And also that we support the co-production of delivery plan with people who have lived experience through a working group of Homelessness Delivery Board members. And then just for your information as well, we did also recommend that the Adult Health and Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Group may want to add it to their forward plan and have a look at it before Cabinet as well. So that's just a quick update from me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rigby. Okay, so we will move on to agenda item 6, which takes us into the bulk of our Cabinet papers today. This is on asset disposals.
Sorry, Leader, did you not want to bring the children's papers forward first?
Oh, thank you very much
No
for
worries.
reminding me. Yes, you are absolutely correct. So, as I said at the start, we're going to bring the children's items to the top of the agenda because Councillor Burton isn't with us today and needs to get back to his activities with the LGA. Thank you. So we are going to start with the Somerford Primary School resource provision. Councillor Burton is going to be presenting, but of course he can't propose if he's not in the room. So can I see if there is someone to propose this item, please?
Yes, happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Moore, and someone to second.
Happy to second, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Burton, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Leader, and I'm sorry that I can't be with you. This paper is asking Cabinet to agree the proposal to establish a new resource provision for primary age school children with SEND at Somerford Primary School. If we agree the provision, it can be in place from the 1st of April this year. The provision is to develop 16 places for primary age pupils with SEND and have social, emotional and mental health or autism as their primary needs statement on their EHCPs. Currently within Christchurch, there's a lack of local specialist places, which results in some pupils travelling a considerable distance or being placed out of area. This means that primary age pupils have to travel outside the communities and spend a long time being transported and adds to our SEND's transport cost. If we agree to this, the pupils will remain part of their mainstream class and wider school community, which is good for their social development. I've mentioned to Cabinet previously that there are falling numbers of school-aged children within BCP. In fact, nationally, we've been discussing this actually this week with the LGA. This is especially true in the Christchurch area. You will call the paper on reducing the PAN for another local school recently. So this provision plans to repurpose surplus classroom spaces within the existing school. And adaptations will be made to make the space suitable, like adding sensory rooms and designed outdoor spaces. Access to places will be phased across 2026 to enable resource provision to grow gradually to its full capacity of 16 places. Admissions will go through the normal SEND panel as part of the statutory EHCP process, ensuring that placements are made transparently and in line with identified needs, or moving forward to whatever the new procedures are after the white paper takes its course. There has been a formal statutory consultation on the 12th of January until the 9th of February. As with all these things, there was a low number of people replied to that because, of course, only those people who are very interested in their pupils at that particular school replied. But with the small number replied, people were very, very supportive of this. Thank you, Chair. I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. I'm going to see if there's any councillors who wish to speak on this item who aren't on Cabinet. Councillor Carr-Brown.
Yeah, I was in two minds. Hello, thank you, Leader. I was in two minds as to whether to speak because I'm sure that everyone can see the value of doing this. But just to say, we haven't looked at this in Children's Committee, but I think I'm on pretty safe ground that I can speak for them that they would absolutely endorse that this is the direction of travel that we need to take. I think we need to do much more of it, as much as we possibly can of it, and not just because it saves money. In fact, not because it saves money, but because it puts our children in the provision that they need closer to their home, without the need to be in taxis and that sort of artificial way of engaging with the school day. If we can do it this way, and I visited Dingley's Promise yesterday, and I spoke to the head teacher of Somerford actually, and their excitement around this whole thing was palpable. So just to endorse it, and please do more of it.
Thank you, Councillor Carr-Brown. Okay, I can't see any other indications, so I'm going to pass over to Cabinet, please, to speak on this item. Councillor Martin.
Very quickly, I would just actually like to endorse what Councillor Carr-Brown has said about really welcoming this as a really good step forward, but also to say that yes, we must do much more of this, and without sounding like a broken record, and I know Kathy Hadley's here and Richard's online, we have another potential one very nearby, which I won't mention, but it would be great to see that come on stream at some point. if it's decided that that is the appropriate use for that building. So very much endorse the report, the decision and the comments made by the Chair of Children's. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Any other indications? No, Councillor Burton, anything else to add?
No, I just to thank everybody for their support. Councillor Carr-Brown. Yeah, unfortunately I couldn't come to the English Promise yesterday because I'm up in Coventry. But I'm really disappointed I couldn't do that. I love being photographed with a large blue bear, which is a treat for that sort of thing. And I totally agree that something like this. The provision will end up being better. Our children will be supported better. They'll have better outcomes, and purely, as a bonus is what I can see. Although I know some people in the room might not see it quite like that. It will be cheaper as well. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Okay, we will go to a vote on this item, please. Can I see all those in favour of the recommendation? That is unanimous. Thank you. So on to agenda item 20, which is the Children's Services Capital Strategy Report for 26 to 29. Councillor Burton will be presenting. Can I see if there is someone to propose this one, please?
Yes, happy to propose, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And someone to second?
Happy to second, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Burton, over to you.
Yes, thank you again, Chair. So this paper follows on from the report that went to Council in March last year that set out the priorities for the period of 25-26 to 27-28. So this is an update for that period, for going from 26-27 to 28-29. As always, it's quite a technical paper. It looks at the funding allocation and includes the basic needs funding, which funds new school places, which on this is 0.88 million. The school's condition allocation of 5.88 million, which is for maintenance of the school estate. And the thing that I know we're all going to be most interested in is the SEND high needs provision capital of 27.68 million, which the council's high needs provision estimated for increasing the supply of specialist places and promoting inclusion. The paper also mentions a section 106 contribution of just over £500,000 from developers for expansions to school places to mitigate school place pressures created by new housing development. In total of 200 places are being created at approximately just over 19,000 per place. This is for the high needs area, which is substantially below the national benchmark of nearly 23,000 for SEND places in refurbished accommodation. I've mentioned before that at the end of last year, the DfE cancelled the 18 free school projects, which included one in BCP. Instead, we'll receive a per pupil capital allocation to develop provision within existing schools. For those of you who read the white paper, you will see that this is the direction of travel. The funding received does not allow us to build the new provision, however, so that's down to us. We have the challenge that both are needed and that we need to work closely with education providers to find suitable places, finding suitable specialist finding suitable specialist workforce and leadership. Remember that these same challenges are happening across the country, and the time will be needed nationally to develop the skills and workforce that we need. And this is the area which actually I feel is going to be quite a challenge moving forward. No one-stop send related, one non-send related point to note. Any new buildings constructed as part of these schemes will be designed on the principle of net zero carbon sustainability, reducing the emissions in maintained schools estate. Schools historically have been very wasteful on energy, and therefore anything that we can do around that is great. One risk to mention, the project does not deliver facilities if the project does not deliver facilities that are required. Remember that SEND isn't a single designation. Every child is different and has different needs. Just developing a SEND vision, you've got to make sure we have the right provision in the right place for the right pupils. Again, thank you, Leader. I think I can leave it there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. So I will see if anyone who isn't on Cabinet wants to speak on this. I know it was considered at Children's Overview and Scrutiny. So Councillor Carr-Brown.
Thank you, Leader. Me again. So we actually took this item as information only because it was an update, and we did look at the bigger paper, as it were, that Councillor Burton just referred to last year. We looked at that in depth, and there were no comments to add as such from the committee. Again, a comment from my visit to Dingley's Promise yesterday, which was work carried out by BCP on that provision to bring it up to the quality that it needed to be and the place that it needed to be for the children that it wishes to accommodate. The standard of work I thought was excellent, and it was really heartening to speak to the people who were responsible for it, actually, the pride they took in that work. Which was really wonderful to see. And also there was anticipation around what they can now do. Yes, the specialist school that was agreed by the last government but not funded by the last government has been replaced by £9 million of secured funding across 3 years. So that is money that the council knows that it has and can invest in this area. And as I said before, I hope to see a lot more of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr-Brown. Right, any councillors wishing to speak on this item? Anyone on Cabinet wishing to speak? Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Thanks to Councillor Burton for highlighting the net zero ambitions, but I guess, and it come up in the climate report a bit later, I just wonder whether we're doing all we can to encourage those academy schools to also take steps to look at their climate footprint and at their energy use, particularly not just from a net zero and a climate change perspective, but given we're at war again, or the Americans are at war again, the price of energy is going shooting upwards once more. So just in terms of managing their own budgets. And maybe that's about what we can do to assist the academies in making better use of their energy. I know there are examples within the report around boiler replacements and repair of roofs, and it's whether we're taking the opportunity or enabling the opportunity for those steps to be taken as much as we can across every roof. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Any other councillors wishing to speak on this item? No? Councillor Burton, anything to add?
No, just agreement about, as I did mention, many schools struggle with their energy usage. A lot of school estate was actually built back at a time when it wasn't a consideration. I know I've worked in buildings when heating is either off or on, and I've often seen schools heating is on but the windows are open because it's too hot. So I totally agree. What work we can do to support schools would yes, it is definitely on my mind. Yeah, there's nothing else to add really.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Okay, so we will take this item to a vote, please. Can I see all those in favour of the recommendation? That's unanimous, thank you. So on to agenda item 21, the Best Start in Life local plan. Again, Councillor Burton is going to present this item. Is there someone to second it, please? No, to propose it, please.
Yes, happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Moore, and someone to second.
You were looking at me and I couldn't remember if it was me or not, but it clearly is. I'll second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Burton.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So the Best Start in Life local plan is following a government initiative. So in BCP, there are approximately 22,500 children aged 0 to 5 in our community. The whole idea of this is looking at the index of multiple deprivation to us, and the average, we are in an average deprived category. A lot of people don't realise, and I was talking about this to other people here. Of course, we have some very affluent areas in BCP, but we overall are an average deprived category, tops 53%. The paper talks about the GLD target, good level of development target. That is a target to measure children as they leave reception. So it is from birth until when they leave reception. It looks at communication and language, personal, social, emotional development, physical development, literacy, and mathematics. Nationally, there is a target for 75% of all children will achieve this measured good level of development by the end of 27-28 academic year. We have a personal target within BCP, which is higher than the national target, which is 79.9% of children achieving a good level of development. And at least 60.1% of those eligible for free school meals. Now, yeah, I'll just pause on that figure for a moment, because you can see that the data shows that if you're eligible for free school meals, the chance of meeting the target is lower. So it's something that we need to have on our mind all the time. By the 31st of March this year, every local authority must demonstrate how they will work towards government set good level of development targets. This is to improve the outcome from pregnancy to the age of 5 by stronger family support, accessible early education and childcare, and improved early health intervention. Achievement of a good level of development is a responsibility of all service that support children and their families. So it's not just BCP, the local authority, it's all services. So this, why is this important? Well, contrary to what's often believed, children who don't achieve a good level of development at this young age are unlikely to catch up later. It's often believed that I've seen it quoted before that children catch up in secondary schools, but the data isn't there to support that. In fact, quite the opposite. The data shows there's a further divergence, further children and young people move through the education system. So getting the best start to life right is vitally important to these children. To address this, what I must do is open a Best Start family hubs. The local authority, all local authorities have been tasked with opening one. The site identified that we have got is Boscombe Family Hub, because that is the area that is most suited for this. But what we are also doing is we're working to identify a second additional site in the west of BCP by April this year. So what we're being asked to do today is to note the work in progress and the use of this funding. There's a huge amount of detail in the report, and I'm sure if you are interested, I can get more information to you. But it's just oversight of what's happening, and so that everybody is aware. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Okay, anyone who is not on Cabinet wishing to speak on this item? Can't see any indications. Anyone on Cabinet wishing to speak? No, no indications. Sounds like we're all happy with this one. So I will take it straight to a vote. Can I see all? Oh, Councillor Burton, did you want to add anything?
I don't, but I'm sure if anybody has more questions, I'm quite happy to talk about that individually, or if you want to contact me, because there is a huge amount going on here. And to say in the report there's lots of detail, and I have a lot more detail behind it if you're interested. So I'm aware that it's quite a lot to talk about, but the offer is there if anybody wants to take me up on it.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll take this item to a vote, please. Can I see all those in favour of those recommendations? Thank you. That is unanimous. Okay, so thank you, Councillor Burton, for joining us today. And we are going to whiz back to agenda item, hang on, I've got to get back to it. Agenda item 6, which is asset disposals, and we'll continue with the agenda as is. So, Councillor Cox, I think you're going to be proposing this one. Is there someone to second it, please?
I think I'm second this one as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, this report really sets out the proposal to dispose of the assets listed there, and I won't go through them, but the proposal really was considered by the cross-party strategic asset disposal working group on the 12th of February, and there was a complete and utter unanimity that these assets should be disposed of. So the draft minutes are there of the meeting were there in a confidential appendix. I don't think there's much else to say. The only thing I would say is some of these have taken too long to come here. I'm particularly identifying Queensmead, that we have been sitting on this for 3 years when it's been empty, and there is no good excuse for it to be sat there. And we need to get better at that. So, but these 3 can be sold. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Right, anyone wishing to speak on this item who isn't on Cabinet? No indications. Anyone on Cabinet wishing to speak? Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. I have had it raised with me in relation to the pool care centre on Bournemouth Road, or on Commercial Road. Whether we've got the opportunity to think about bus and cycle lanes and widening the road. There was Longfleet Road, High Street North. There was a development where it's a real pinch point in the highway network, and given we own that land, and actually the road flares out as it approaches the roundabout. So particularly if we were looking at splitting the site into multiple parts, where there's an opportunity to dedicate some land as highway land as a part of that would be interesting. Thank you. Sorry for not raising that previously.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly, on the same property, actually, 12 to 14 Commercial Road, Paul. I'm very familiar with the property. It used to be the home to Poole Council's adoption and fostering services and children's social care. I've spent many hours on training sessions there because it used to be the sort of hub where all foster carers went, as well as our pathways sort of transition service as well for children moving out of social care onto adulthood. So it was. I mean, it served its purpose. I think it's a 1980s building, and it's really sort of served the authority well. Its last use was as Pool Plus Day Centre, but as part of the Day Opportunity Strategy that Cabinet approved a couple of years ago. Those people that went to the Pool Plus Day Centre, which was focused on dementia, have been relocated up to Parkstone Connect Day Centre, and from all reports, actually, I think they probably prefer the accommodation at Parkstone Connect, and actually there's been some benefit to, rather than just having a dedicated dementia group, actually there's sort of mixture between those people with dementia with other people using the Parkstone Connect Day Centre, and I think there's been some sort of fringe benefits coming from that move as well. So it's not all bad news, but yeah, and I think that's a really good property because it's a very accessible location on bus routes. It's only a 10-minute walk from Parkstone railway station. So yeah, I think there's some real opportunities to make better use of that for the town. So.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Just picking up on Queensmead. So Queensmead and I go back a very long way. So as a member of Dorset County Council back in the 1980s, I can't remember what the role was, but it was as a councillor visitor to check that everything was working well at the Queensmead. So I have fond memories of Queensmead. However, as Councillor Cox said, this has taken a long time. And I remember going to a meeting about 4 years ago with residents, about 200 residents who were concerned about the future of it and certain proposals that we had. So the residents all around there will no doubt be very pleased that this is going to be disposed of, and hopefully a really good development proposal will come forward in line with that particular area. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Cox, anything to add?
No, thank you. I note the comments from Councillor Hadley, and I'm sure that they will be considered when we come to approve the disposal of the on an open market basis of the 3 properties involved. Thank you.
Right, so we will take this to a vote. We are voting on making the recommendation to council. Can I see all those in favour of those recommendations, please? Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the corporate performance report for Q3. I'm going to be presenting this one. Is there someone to second, please?
Happy to second that, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Okay, so this quarter's performance report offers a real view, as they all do, about how we're progressing against our shared priorities across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Some measures still require focused attention, but actually the overall picture here is one of, I would say, steady improvement and also improved momentum as well. We're seeing more of our performance indicators move in a positive direction, and I think that's a real reflection of the hard work of our teams here at BCP Council and the continued commitment that they have to delivering for residents. There are several encouraging highlights worth noting. I won't go into too much detail because Cabinet members might want to speak on them, but we've seen really strong progress in some key service areas, including sustained improvement in our education, health and care plans being issued within the required timescales, a real reduction in rough sleeping, in fact that it's at the lowest level in that it has been in 18 months, and our local economy is also growing, which shows real confidence as we're getting new businesses opening up in our town centres, which of course helps revitalise our high streets and support local jobs. We're also seeing improvements in major planning application performance. There's a clear upward trend there, and some of those older cases are disappearing, and it's really encouraging for both us as council, but also for developers and for the communities that development might take place in. So I'm going to see if there's any councillors who wish to speak on this who are not on Cabinet. Any indications, please? Can't see any. Let's go to Cabinet for any comments on this one. Councillor Moore.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to pick out one green, which I'm really pleased about, and that's the annual data on the UK business count from the ONS, showing that the BCP area has performed better in 25 than 24, with an increase of 105 additional businesses recorded over the annual period. At the same time, I want to mention one red and one amber, and that's that the households in bed and breakfast have remained stable, but the demand for housing services has reached a 5-year high and clearly driven mainly through Section 21 no-fault evictions. Unfortunately, new legislation changes will probably add further pressure for this service. Additional government funding will be directed towards homelessness prevention with targeted support for households most at risk, which is good and very much needed. And the annual rough sleeping count, as you mentioned, Leader, has reduced by 16% to 53 people, which is a significant reduction, especially for long-term rough sleepers. And I'm also pleased that St Mungo's street outreach service were recommissioned to deliver the dedicated service this quarter, because they do an excellent job, I think. Well, homelessness in this BCP area is a critical issue, and I know that partnership working is essential and delivers really effective results. But given the nature of the problem, there will always be more to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the first one is bus patronage, and it's disappointing the numbers are down, but partly that's down to the weather. We're working really hard in partnership with the bus companies in general, and Moorbus in particular, in terms of our bus quality partnership to try and ensure that we are supporting sustainable journeys, and I'd hope that number will go back up. The second one, electric vehicle charging, is showing as positive, but we have just finalised and starting mobilisation of a significant increase in the number of charging points available on street, and also the work on the gully work. So I would hope to see that number increase quite significantly in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Herritt.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'd just like to highlight the increases. Well, you did a little bit earlier, that we've added 105 additional businesses to December 2025 than our target. Sorry?
I said, sorry, I mentioned it.
We're seeing businesses coming into the area and investing. We already have a commitment from JP Morgan. IMI's really significant investment over in Poole on a new site that will relocate them, a new town and district centre openings, and people just kind of striking out on their own. A garage has just opened down the road, or just about to open down the road from my house. And year-on-year footfall in our town centres as well has kind of stood up really well against the coastal average. It's a real tough time for high streets, but we're surviving in there, and Bournemouth Town Centre in particular outperforming that.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight one positive area within my area, and that's the increase in the number of individuals entering drug treatment, which the latest available data, although there's a bit of a time lag in getting that data, shows that we're sort of above what we expected to, and it's moving in a positive direction. And I just really wanted to use that to pay respect to the work of the people with you, who are the organisation that we commissioned to deliver our sort of drug and alcohol treatment services. And as you read there, there's well over 3,000 people receiving drug treatment in BCP, funded through our sort of public health grant. And for every one of those, you know, the work that's being done with them is life-changing for them and for their families. And in many cases, I've heard a number of cases where it's actually life-saving, that many of our staff have now been trained to deal with people who have experienced an overdose and actually administer treatment that actually saves their lives. And indeed, one of our social workers was trained, and I understand that on leaving the training course, left the building, and there was somebody in the street and they managed to save their life, having just left the training course for it. Every month that's happening, and I don't think people realise that actually our officers within housing, within public health, within social work are actually saving people's lives month in, month out across this conurbation. And I'm convinced that, you know, the work that's done with these people saves their lives, transforms their lives, and, you know, makes them much more sort of valuable and productive members of our community, and saves the pressure on their families as well. So I think there's some really outstanding work going on in that service, and I just wanted to pay tribute to that.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Anyone else wishing to speak on this one? No? Okay, so we will take this item to a vote. Can I ask, do Cabinet accept those recommendations, please? That is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 8, which is the Climate Action Annual Report. Councillor Hadley is going to be proposing this item. Is there someone to second, please?
Thank you, Leader. I'll be happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, so this is the 6th annual climate report since BCP was formed, and tracking progress on our ambitions and targets for climate change. 21% reduction in our own footprint and 18% reduction in the area-wide footprint is the progress to date. The report includes some real challenges. There's information from the Met Office which highlights the changes to our climate that are pretty self-evident to most people, I think, but also the and the impact of that in terms of wetter winters and flooding and heat waves and heath fires in the summertime. The government also produced a nature security assessment on global biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse and national security. And that might sound very dry and uninteresting until you realise that it's giving some really stark warnings about what we need to do and what will happen if we don't act on climate. And it was sort of quietly put out by government without much of a fanfare, which I think is really a real shame. But that's really important. So we've seen progress on our key areas. I'd like to see lots more, and we're working really hard to make that happen. And working with key partners around the area on the area-wide targets. And again, that's a growing group of people who are giving mutual support, highlighting solutions to each other and helping each other. And so very pleased to be seeing that growing as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Okay, would any members who are not on Cabinet like to speak on this item? Councillor Rigby, I understand this was considered at Environment and Place, so please do come up and tell us your reflections.
Thank you again, Leader. Yeah, this also came to Environment and Place, where we had a really good debate on this, and I think pushed back quite hard against the progress which has been made so far. This came to us just to note, and I think it comes to Cabinet just to note as well, but it's probably worth saying the improvements which have been seen from the previous report, which we've seen to this one, are significantly better. The percentage of the cutting emissions is increased drastically, but if we continued on that same trajectory, we still wouldn't be meeting the BCP 2030 targets. So this is more of a plea than anything else to find ways in which we can ensure we're going to be able to meet those targets, because by not meeting them, there is going to be an increased cost regardless. We all know that money is tight, but there's also many different ways of getting non-capex solutions to reducing the energy which is used by BCP Council and across the region as well. Also, we spoke about being supportive landlords for our leased out buildings to help in the leasees be able to take out energy saving actions on their own, providing bridging funding, anything like that. So whilst we recognise that there is a great improvement, there's still plenty of work to be done on this, and we do look forward to seeing the same report next year and seeing even better numbers in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Any other members not on Cabinet? I can't see any indications. Okay, over to Cabinet. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, first, I think it's a really good report, and I think it was really well scrutinised, Environment and Place over scrutiny. I was even made to get up to the table and answer a few questions, because one of the things that's in the report is around our housing stock, BCP homes, and I think that was not a consideration some of the earlier iterations of these climate action reports, but it's something that we've been conscious to include, because it's really important that we decarbonise our housing stock that we own. And we're making a lot of good progress within that space. So I think from next month, all of our window replacements are going to be triple glazing, which seems like a small step, but it's something that will make a big difference, both in terms of this agenda, but also to our residents in reducing their energy bills. We're also looking towards the end of this year, start of next year, having a decarbonising strategy for our stock, and that's in coordination with the climate change team at the council. So there's really good cross partnership, kind of cross department working, which is really positive to see. But I think what I like most about this report is probably the forward from the portfolio holder. You can actually tell that he's written it, and that's not always the case with some of these strategies. And it's clear that his passion and his desire to see real big change within this area come through. You know, I think it's a real call to action that we need to be going faster and we need to be doing more. So I think it's really fair that Environment and Place have recognised the work that we've done so far, which has been really positive, but also is pushing us to go further. And I think the portfolio holder will be really keen to meet that challenge. So yeah, just want to commend the report and just say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any other Cabinet members wishing to speak on this? No, I think we'll go back to Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, thank you, Councillor Rigby, for your comments. I absolutely agree with you. We have done some significant work this year. The annual report is a challenge because it's progress to March, and we're way beyond that now. And so there was quite a lot of agonising over, well, can we include this in the report because it's this year rather than last year, because it's a report looking backwards at the previous year. So we tried to include progress underway for things that will come through in the coming year. But we have done work on the local area energy plan, which is looking at security of energy to the area, as well as renewable energy as part of that, and what the 15-year target would be for actually making that better. There's work that Scottish and Southern Energy are doing in making our energy supply more resilient, but we are reliant on a single point on the national grid. And they are beefing things up, which means roadworks in Christchurch, because Scottish and Southern Energy are putting in new big cables, but it's part of that programme. We've also commissioned a study looking at heat networks, and the University Hospitals Dorset are very actively looking to sync a geothermal solution as the core of a heat network, and to work with us, and that is coming forward at pace, which is really good to see, and obviously forms the nucleus for a wider rollout. And we're also trying to look at community energy opportunities, and that's part of why I mentioned for the schools, because maybe it's not about us investing, it's about either the school investing or as Councillor Rigby highlighted, third parties being able to use that roof and provide cheap electricity to the school as the same part. We've also been looking at vulnerability tools, and it was mentioned in terms of our housing stock, but a lot of privately rented housing stock or privately owned stock is really poor quality in terms of thermal efficiency and heating. And we need to help people with raising their ambition and their opportunity to save themselves some money. You know, it's not just about climate; it's about cost. And I think the opportunities that we're taking within our own estate, there's been lots of good work. There's more good work that we need to do, and looking at other authorities, we could raise our sites higher, and I think that's really welcome that the team are doing that. I think I'd also like to pay tribute to the team. So yes, I am passionate, and I do try and prod all sorts of people all around the organisation in terms of climate, but it is also down to the team working with me. So and obviously they put most of the report together, and with comment from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Okay, so we will take this item to a vote. It is to note the climate progress report, and of course take on what Councillor Rigby has said in that challenge for next year's as well. Can I see all those in favour of that recommendation, please? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you. On to agenda item 9, which is the increased penalty charge notice and associated charges trial. Councillor Herritt is going to be presenting this item. Can I see who's going to second this one, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Herritt, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. I've got all the really long titles of papers today. So the risk of repeating the foreword of the report and myself a scrutiny, I am going to highlight this is an absolutely mammoth piece of work. Following lobbying from this council, its legacy authorities and the MPs, the DFT granted us the ability to embark on a trial at less than 2 weeks' notice for increased penalty charge notices for the month of August 2025. What our officers did then was genuinely incredible to get this trial up and running. It needed confirming with the DFT, we needed to provide info that there were enough parking places, confirming when a sign is a poster and when a poster is a sign, a communication plan, legal checks, machine recalibration, briefings for teams, establishment of what roads were which, as the machines work in all of that road format, tweaks to the trial area, and a launch in under 2 weeks. Given that local authorities and government authorities are not renowned for their speed on such issues, we also recognise this opportunity could not be passed up. So Helen Taverner, her team, alongside the sign shop, traffic, communications and our legal department managed to get this trial stood up in that time frame. What followed were weekly meetings with the DFT, followed by the extensive report that you can now see, that have indicated its success. Illegal parking down against a trending increase, no discernible impact on visitor numbers or challenge rates, 60% of residents who responded to a survey in favour, although it should be noted that respondents who did get an uplifted PCN were less enthusiastic about the trial. Businesses were strongly in favour. Most of the negative sentiment that we did get around the trial seemed to be driven by personal inconvenience and those affected directly having to pay more when they parked illegally than anything else. We saw improved bus punctuality, average speeds, average utilisation of parking at 57%. The report therefore allowed officers to express that it was a success, and to the DFT that we should either be allowed an extended trial across the whole area alongside other local authorities or straight to a national change. Some standout pieces of data from our report, a drop of 15% against an anticipated quantity of PCNs issued. A trend is for a 9% increase and there was a 6% drop. Our average car park occupancy sits at 57% in this period, suggesting quite strongly that illegal parking is a choice, not one down to lack of capacity. And I know that earlier in the summer, even on what I like to call the busiest of red days, we had significant capacity in our multi-storey car parks in Bournemouth town centre, and that was on when we were issuing kind of 1,000 PCNs across the weekend. This was supported across the committee at scrutiny, and we were encouraged to lobby hard to try and see whether we could either get that extended trial or a national change in place, particularly for our summer, which obviously is quickly approaching, and I intend to do just that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Herrett. Right, any councillors wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to echo Richard's praise for our officers that stood this up very quickly. I think it's one of these things whereby if as a local authority we ask for something and it gets granted, we better make sure that we've got a plan in place, because the direction of travel appears to be that things move very quickly. I very much appreciate the work with the DFT and building that relationship with the DFT, because what will come and follow is probably going to be more of the same. So that's one of the things which I was quite pleased with. I'm really pleased with the response of all the MPs across the area, because I think that's vital, because the nature of us being a holiday town, particularly here in Bournemouth and elements of Poole, is such that we do need to stand up, because the illegal parking, the inconsiderate parking, is a long-standing issue. And the fact that we've put this trial in place, and it's so pleasing to hear the feedback that we've got, is that it's not impacting our visitor numbers, but it is actually improving our congestion and improving our buses. And I think it can only be a good thing, and I'm very supportive of it. I'm very supportive of moving forward with the DFT for an extension of the trial, or actually implementing what we've learned from it with this summer season, which is rapidly approaching. Being more to the east, I'm not quite as badly affected in my particular ward, or my residents are not quite as badly affected as some of the inconsiderate parking further to the west and closer to the town centres. But it will certainly be appreciated that the inconsiderate parking is targeted. And I've seen the signage as well that was around the trial, which I think was very, very useful, such as there is a trial in place for communicating that, and the some of the signage which is left, such as tow-away operations in operation, actually gives that subconscious message to people to not inconsiderately park. So I look forward to further developments on the trial, and kudos to the officers for standing it up.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. I can't see any other indications from councillors not on Cabinet, so I think I'll go to Cabinets now for any comments. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, we have to remember that as Councillor Farquhar has just said, you know, this is a long-standing problem, and it got to the point where Moorbus refused to run a bus down to Boscombe Pier, and I had reports from several members of the public who were going, I'm disabled, I can't get to the beach now because I can't get down there on the bus, and that was from people parking in really stupid places, parking around about dangerous places, getting in the way of ambulances, and also parking right up on the pavement in the way of families trying to get down to the beach on foot, whether they were leaving there, you know, from their car or going from home or from a bus or train stop. Just so inconsiderate. So it's really interesting because, you know, the charges, the penalties haven't gone up since I think 2008. And just haven't kept pace with inflation. And yes, we already had those tow-away signs. That was an earlier action we took as I think as a Unity Alliance back in about 2020. But it was seen as cheaper for them to risk it because they might get away with it, but also it wasn't paying for our costs for towing these vehicles away, or even for issuing tickets. So I think the plea really is to government to crack on with it, and I do welcome the idea that they are fixing lots of issues that have been long-standing or have been kicked down the road by a previous government. But a little bit more time than 2 weeks would be helpful, because there are all sorts of other things that had to be dropped in order for the team to do their heroic effort in getting this out. And Helen Tavener and her team are absolutely to be congratulated on making it work. But any opportunity anyone's got to influence the MPs to kind of go, can we have it again, please? Would be really welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Leader. I very much want to support this report and the recommendations. Councillor Farquhar has already said just about everything that I planned to say. Grateful to him for that. That will save me a little bit of time and save Cabinet a little bit of time. But what I would say is that my own ward in West Southbourne is even further east than his. But at the same time, it was very clear from conversations with residents, they were very appreciative of the trial in August, and that it did have an impact in terms of reducing inconsiderate parking and areas where there were blockages to a great degree. So grateful for that. The one comment that I would make is in relation to, as Councillor Harrod said, that the occupancy of our car parks means that there is still a lot of space available and that people can still go and park there. But what I noticed was that a number of families made use of perhaps not quite appropriate spaces in order to park at the cliff top for long enough to decant the family, to decant the picnic and the picnic blankets and things of that sort, and then for the driver to leave and go and find a suitable place to park for the duration. And given the fact that what I noticed was this was happening in places where technically parking should not have taken place, it would be good if we had some spaces that were reserved precisely for that purpose, where the amount of time where people are allowed to park could be as little as 5 or 10 minutes, simply to enable that decanting to take place, and that would encourage more people to go and park in the spaces that are available in the car parks, which might be a 5-minute walk away. So that said, very much hope that we do see some progress one way or the other for the coming summer, so that we can have a similar relief from inappropriate parking again this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. First of all, the most important thing is for me to echo colleagues' comments about, and I had written down the word heroic, because I think it's a massive effort by the team, and credit to the portfolio holder for his work on this one. So that's the most important thing to say. However, as colleagues probably know, I'm unaccustomed as I am to having a pop at anybody at any time. I didn't want to have a pop at the AA, because I was quite surprised to read a story in various media about the AA saying earlier in the week that it cannot support our plans to go for these the longer term proposals on this. So I did wonder what it's got to do with the AA anyway, quite frankly. But it was interesting, given that I'm trying to see the quote says, it's a quote from the head of public affairs of the AA saying they couldn't support it. And a blanket raising of local parking fines to London levels is unacceptable and doesn't get our support, he said, and said it risked setting a precedent for other councils outside the capital to follow. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't quite understand why they felt the need to get involved in this. And frankly, given the fact that clearly the individual who's publicly quoted criticising us on this clearly isn't aware of the issues. Otherwise, I don't think he would have said what he'd said. Given that a huge part of this is, as we know, it's about safety of residents, safety of motorists. I really don't see why the AA should feel the need to involve themselves in this. They should just stick to fixing broken down cars, I would have thought. But I thought I'd mention that point because I thought it was outrageous an outrageous intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Any other Cabinet members wishing to speak? I think just to add to that, I also want to thank the team who did an incredible job stepping this up at very, very short notice. I think it was literally 2 weeks in the end, wasn't it, to get signage out, to get officers trained, to do all of the work in getting set up for what is essentially a statutory change in legislation in how we could implement these higher charges. But I do think this puts a level of parity across the UK and the trial itself has demonstrated that London is not a special case. This will have a positive impact for areas outside of London, and especially for areas like ours, which when the sun comes out, we get a huge influx of visitors who we want to visit, but not at the expense of people's safety on our roads. And I'd agree with you, Councillor Martin. I think when we talk about raising these parking fines, this is absolutely to prevent illegal parking. And if we want to prevent illegal parking, we need to provide a proper incentive so that people actually park in the car parks that are available rather than on roundabouts, double parking on streets and parking on pavements, which not only creates more risk but increases congestion across our seafront in those summer months. So I'm really pleased with how this has gone. I think we've been very clear with government about those next steps, how we can extend this further, and I would hope to see the end game of this is a national legislation change to allow us to charge higher amounts, so that we do have that ability as local authorities that aren't in London to prevent that dangerous parking. Councillor Herritt, back to you, please, to sum up.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to colleagues for the support. Considering how to express all of that into improving our lobbying position and getting the change that we'd like. So I'll be in touch. It would also appear that the AA didn't actually read the report that well, given one of the risks that they highlight is something we're literally asking for in the report. They're expressing it as a risk of something that might happen, not something that we're asking for. And I will further remind the AA there is a very easy way for drivers to avoid fines for illegal parking. Fines have been the same since 2008 and left by all government through that time. And one of the things that highlights in the report is how that's changed against like national averages in terms of wages. And in fact, if they'd risen with inflation through that time, they'd very much be at the level that we're suggesting that they would be. I would also say that getting a trial again should be caveated again with we would like a very different version of a trial, should that be something that the DFT would like. One of the number one items in my inbox, and I'm sure a lot of other councillors' inbox, is illegal parking around schools. That makes it really dangerous for our children and young people just getting to the door of the school. I do like the idea of drop-off points, but I think unless we get a higher fine, they risk being abused really significantly unless we can provide staffing to really control that area. But unloading and setting down is permitted on regular double yellow lines when done safely. So there is already that provision in a lot of places. And yes, I think my final thought would just be that I'd like to thank our officers again for their involvement, a real standout piece of work.
Thank you. A great example of government and local authority able to work together. So this item is for noting. So can I see all Cabinet members who are in favour of that recommendation? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Okay, so we're going to move on to agenda item 10, which is the BCP Council Discretions Policy. Councillor Hannah is going to be presenting this. Is there someone to second this item, please?
Happy to second that, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Leader. I'm hoping that this is straightforward. It's not about approving a new policy. The policy has already been approved by full council as part of the pay and reward package. And as part of that package, we agreed to enable members of staff to opt to make shared cost additional voluntary contributions to their pensions. The report is here because we are part of the Dorset County Pension Fund, and as a matter of formality, we need to approve the wording in the policy document, which has been provided in the appendix, statement of policy on the local government pension scheme 2014 discretions. Although it has been updated even since then. The policy that we put in place already is described in paragraph 4 of the report. It enables employees to boost tax-efficient savings, to build up a lump sum, to potentially convert it to extra pension at retirement, or to take all or part of their pension in as cash. Paragraph 5 sets out the financial implications of what I emphasize is already our policy, and it actually leads to savings for the council, as exemplified in the table in paragraph 5.6, which shows that if an employee were to contribute £200 from their salary for a shared cost additional voluntary pension contribution, then the council would pay 5% or £10 to the scheme, but the council would also save the national insurance element of 15% or £30, with an overall saving to the council of £20. That detail is provided as a reassuring reminder, given that, as I said, we have already approved the principles behind this policy. We're not reviewing it today. What we're doing is approving the wording that has been drafted into the policy document, which is on page 7 of the document, paragraphs 17 and 15, brackets 2a. I hope that explains what this is about, and move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hannah. Any councillors not on Cabinet wishing to speak on this item? No? Cabinet? Nope, I think we're all quite content as it's a straightforward report. Can I see all those in favour of approving the discretion policy? Don't need to sum up. Thank you, that is unanimous. Okay, on to item 11, which is supported and specialist housing strategy for 26 to 36. Councillor Wilson is going to be presenting this item. Can I see if there is someone willing to second?
Happy to second, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moore. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to bring forward BCP's first supported housing and supported and specialist housing strategy. A 10-year plan that ultimately is about something very simple but incredibly important, making sure people have a safe, stable home that genuinely meets their needs. Across our area, thousands of residents rely on supported or specialist housing. Older people who want to stay independent, adults with disabilities or long-term conditions, people who have experienced homelessness, and young people leaving care. And every one of them deserves not just a roof, but the right home in the right place with the right support. Our population is ageing faster than the national average. More people need adaptable, accessible homes, and demand for specialist support is rising. Without a clear plan, the gap between need and supply will only grow. This strategy ensures we act now. Within the strategy, there are three very clear priorities. First, increasing and improving the supply of specialist and accessible homes, including extra care housing and better, more modern sheltered accommodation. Second, putting independence at choice at the heart of everything we do. People told us they wanted flexibility, dignity and support that fits around their lives. And thirdly, strengthening the pathways between housing, health and social care so people don't slip between the services. Now, it's really, really important to say, and I want to really emphasise this, meeting this need isn't about building everything from scratch. A huge part of the solution will come from adapting existing homes, remodelling current homes so they work better for modern needs, acquiring suitable properties already in the community, and working with registered providers to repurpose homes that can be turned into high quality support accommodation. New build will and should play a really, really big role, but it's one part of a mixed and realistic approach that makes sure we make the best use of what we already have. That said, the scale of need is really, really clear. Over the next decade, we will require around 800 additional extra homes, up to 2,600 accessible properties for working age adults, over 100 new supported living homes for those with long-term mental illness, more than 160 for people with learning disabilities, and potentially hundreds more homes for those experiencing homelessness. But these numbers aren't just statistics, they reflect people who need stability, safety and hope. And I think as well it's really important to say that this is all going to be underpinned by a delivery plan and an action plan coming forward, and I think that we need to be held accountable to both that and the strategy going forward, and I think that is really, really key to make sure that this comes to fruition over the next decade. This strategy has been shaped with residents, carers, frontline staff and partners, and as we deliver it, we'll keep listening. Ultimately, this is about giving people the foundation for the chance to live well and be part of their community and have a home that meets their needs. So I'm really happy to present this strategy, and I commend it to Cabinet for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Okay, I can see that Councillor Canavan has indicated online. Councillor Canavan, go ahead.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak and to do so online. I just wanted to bring to Cabinet's attention that this has not yet been considered by the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I will certainly be wanting it to, because as Councillor Wilson has just outlined, this is not just about building houses or converting houses, it's about health and well-being of members of our community. But having said that, I'm sure the committee would welcome this strategy because I think it's quite coherent and it sets out a very clear direction of travel. And all the recommendations that are contained within the strategy are ones that I feel Cabinet should support. I think everyone will be aware that the percentage of our population over 65 is increasing, but what this strategy sets out, and indeed what the needs assessment makes clear, is that specialist provision, whether it's for those with mental health issues or learning disabilities, represent a significant proportion of the challenge. And it is a challenge because demand is increasing and also the nature of that demand is changing. Not only is this about those with more complex needs, but again, as the needs assessment makes clear, there is a need to consider the sort of accommodation that is suitable. And that's not least because the requirement for accommodation that has ensuite facilities will definitely increase. And I'm sure Cabinet will have noted in the paperwork the number of void properties without such facilities, which I feel underlines the need to address that. I feel strategy is an important component of our plans to enable residents to live independently, whether this is through our Fulfil Lives programme or the Future Care transformation. What we know is that the NHS 10-year plan seeks to shift the dial from hospital to community care, and that means ensuring that all of our services underpin that. And in terms of scrutiny, I feel sure that they would want to focus on outcomes. So the action plan that Councillor Wilson has just mentioned, I think is going to be absolutely critical for us to have a look at. So I think the strategy will need to be reviewed against delivery. So I just ask Cabinet to ensure that we do that work. And as we have done so already, ensure that those with specialist needs feel included, have their views heard and their needs addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan. Councillor George Farquhar.
Thank you, Leader. As with many of the councillors here, then I've been involved with Section 21s and complex cases for homelessness in my ward and further afield. I just wanted to bring attention to the fact, as the newly appointed Armed Forces champion, I took the opportunity on Friday to support and advocate for a veteran through the DWP system in the case of crisis, and also through our housing for immediate need within the council buildings here at the Civic Centre. The expectations of the Armed Forces Covenant are changing. There is an extension across our corporate delivery beyond housing and adult social care, because our armed forces communities require that complex support. One of the things which I wanted to bring to the table is that we're not necessarily falling down, but we are, from my experience in going through the process with this individual suffering from PTSD, physical and mental wounds, and his family unit, which is so essential for our armed forces community, is that the Armed Forces Covenant is not being put to the fore of identifying that particular complex needs by a simple process of identifying if they've served in the military before. Now, it's one of these ones whereby you have to see it actually in action to accept that that's the case. So the sort of things which I'm speaking about here is further down the line, or perhaps being built into the strategy, is the training of our frontline point of contact, whether it's coming through children's, whether it's coming through housing, whether it's coming through adult support for our armed forces community, because you need that training so that the individuals are not disadvantaged because of their complex needs. The difficulty with the military, having served in uniform before, is we're not very open, and we don't have a great degree of trust. So I heard the training that Councillor Brown mentioned about people applying first aid for overdoses, etc. I think our frontline services need to be more aware that the complexity of the case that they are encountering for the immediate relief is that if it's not embracing for those complex needs, or accepting that they are there more than I am homeless, or I have this, or I've broken up with my my partner, we lose them for those in the armed forces communities, because they'll just take themselves off for rough sleeping up into the woods, etc. And that's a message that came through very loud and clear to me. So I'd very much like to have an opportunity at the overview of scrutiny to feed in my experiences on behalf of the armed forces community, and also to stress that those that are on the front line for the first point of contact, wherever it comes through, whatever corporate directorate that it comes through from, need to be trained in those complex needs, which are often hidden, and whether it's pride or guilt or other mental difficulties, those particular clients that are in need won't necessarily be identified. So I'd just like you to undertake that, that when it goes before scrutiny, that the Armed Forces Champion gets an opportunity to share the experiences of our Armed Forces community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. I can't see any other indications, so I will go over to Cabinet, please. So, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I have to speak on this. I can't sort of really add too much to what Councillor Wilson's added, but obviously this is really important for adults with physical disabilities, long-term care needs, severe and enduring mental illness, learning disabilities. And really, I'm really pleased to see this report, and the way it's been put together and co-produced is that we've got changing demographics in our conurbation, and that means there is going to be a growing and developing need for this more specialist housing, as well as a changing approach to actually providing long-term care, and not just simply saying, oh, there's a care home down the road, you need to move there. Actually thinking about what's more appropriate to keep people independent at home, or provide extra care facilities, for example. And for me, what's really key is paragraphs 13 and 14 of the report, which talk about the local plan, setting the overall housing requirement, and the supported and specialist housing strategies feeding into the local plan evidence base, ensuring the needs of specific groups can be reflected in the forthcoming local plan policies. We're looking at thousands of new homes being built within the BCP area. And for me, this strategy and those statements, we'll see the end of where we've seen major housing developments in the area with 300, 400, 500, 600 houses, and then the developer has a deal with a national care home provider and says, oh, and on this bit of land, we're going to put in a 60-bed care home or an 80-bed care home, which is not necessarily reflecting the need that we have in the area, and we're trying to avoid that sort of need. So actually, I think getting this integrated with a local plan will make sure that those house builders and developers have to think more effectively about actually just building a off-the-book 60-bed care home operated by a national care home provider isn't going to cut it. Actually, we need them to think about, actually, should there be pockets of extra care housing in that development? Should there be different types of specialist housing? So for me, that's the key. It's partly about what we can develop ourselves and what we'll do with our own housing stock, but it's also about how we'll influence the local plan. So.
Thanks, Councillor Brown. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Well, I think this is a really interesting report, and it's a comprehensive 10-year strategy outlining the Council's commitment to developing supported and specialist housing in line with projected future needs. Through my work with the Age-Friendly Steering Group, I know that the BCP area has, and I'm going to give you the numbers here, 88,000 residents aged over 65 and 14,000 aged over 85, an older age profile than the national average. We also have 166,000 residents aged over 50 whose needs will clearly shape the future. And demand is changing, people are living longer, and this area continues to attract retirees who choose to settle here after visiting. And why not? This is, after all, a good place to live. So while many residents age 50 plus own their homes outright, a growing number have mortgages or live in private or social rented housing. So given that we also have a decline in home ownership among younger people, this trend is likely to continue. And demand is also increasing for accessible and adaptable homes, as well as for housing to support residents with mental health needs, learning disabilities, complex housing histories, homelessness, and care experienced young people. So providing good quality, appropriate housing will help reduce pressures on health and social care services, and quality housing benefits not only residents, but also their families and the wider community by strengthening connections and support networks. But getting this right won't be easy, especially against a background of increased need and rising costs. And delivery will rely on strong partnership working between housing, health and social care, registered providers and the voluntary and community sector. So clearly residents' needs will change, and this strategy must remain a live document, able to adapt and respond appropriately over time. So I'm happy to second this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Can't see any further indications, so I'll go back to Councillor Wilson to sum up.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, well, I suppose firstly starting with the Chair of Health and Adult Social Care, I think very little actually nothing I can disagree with in what he said. I think I really appreciate the support of the recommendations, and I think any strategy is you could have the best strategy in the world, but if it doesn't deliver, then it's a very expensive and pointless piece of paper. So I think it's really important that we are scrutinised and we are held accountable against it through delivery. So really welcome that from the Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny Board. Councillor Farquhar, really appreciate your feedback. I don't see that there's a need to wait for a scrutiny session. I'm happy to feed that back to the team today. So yeah, appreciate that. I do know our frontline staff do have a level of trauma-informed training, and we are actually in some cases best practice of that and being used as examples, but or feedback is always appreciated, so happy to take that back. And if you want to email me with further detail, I can pick that up for you. Councillor Brown, yes, I suppose thank you to you and your teams for the work that's gone into this as well. I think it's definitely not just a housing strategy. It's had to have cross partnership. I keep saying cross partnership when we're talking about internal, cross departmental, cross portfolio work, which is really important, and it's fundamental. And I think you made a really good point about it influencing the local plan and the need for that, because as has been said and mentioned, demand is rising and we really need to address it, and the local plan seems like a sensible way of doing that. And yes, I think thank you, Councillor Moore, as always, for your support. Really good point as well at the end that you made there around it being a live document. This is, it's something that is going to be mobile, and as we keep delivering it, we are going to keep listening. So yeah, really happy to commend it, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Okay, so we will go to a vote on this one, please. So on the recommendation that approves the supported and specialist housing strategy, can I see all those in favour, please? Wonderful, that is unanimous. So moving on to agenda item 12, which is a framework for keeping safe in and around water. Councillor Herritt's going to be proposing this one. Is there someone to second it, please?
Yes, Chair, very happy to second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Herritt.
Thank you, Leader. So this paper was originally called the Water Safety Framework following feedback, we needed to clarify that it was not about water quality. And whilst that is a very important issue, not one that we were looking at here, and this is essentially about preventing drowning or people nearly drowning. We do live, as Councillor Moore has so helpfully just pointed out, in a really great place to do so, and we have a great deal of water, with the rivers Stour and Avon, the Bourne Stream, Hatch Pond being notable inland examples, as well as the two harbours and Poole and Christchurch Bay. They provide a really significant opportunity for people to access blue space, with research indicating that it's very good for people's health, helping people relax and have a sense of freedom. However, this can also make it hard for people to recognise the dangers that water can present. As a holiday destination as well, we know that water usage increases when temperatures get above 21 degrees, and with our population significantly swelling on those hot summer days, we obviously see a significant increase in risk. The framework uses the National Water Safety Forum's guidance and the LGA toolkit in its design, and takes into account the profiling of our area, ensuring that regular assessments can take place of our open waters. You'll see from the document the use of data is a key element of that, along with education, stakeholder engagement and communication. And whilst it's clear there are many existing measures in place, this document captures those whilst enhancing the measures and ensuring a more joined up, collaborative approach. A detailed comms plan, responsibility of water areas and workable action plan, the process for review are included, and of course links with the RNLI, Harbour Commissioners, Blue Light Services and those with a stake in working in water safety. We have further groups that do provide training and education in this space as well, particularly the excellent Jonathan Kane at Beachwise, who is relentlessly pursuing education in water safety for our children and young people. And the idea is that this is a documented framework that continues to evolve and develop as the framework matures. I wanted to highlight as well the work of our officers, and thank you specifically to Helen Wildman, who did a huge amount of work on this, but most importantly draw attention here to the risks around water for people and highlight that there are a large amount of organisations who are working to keep and make our waterways safe.
Thank you, Councillor Herritt. Any councillors not on Cabinet wishing to speak on this item? Can't see any indication. Over to Cabinet. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this is a really good piece of work, and there were a couple of things in there that I thought were surprising and worth pulling out. 60% of incidents are in inland water, not on the coast. We have, because the RNLI training is based in my ward, you know, their headquarters and their training facilities is based in the centre of Poole. We have a lot of expertise on our doorstep, and it's great to have, you know, such a prestigious organisation in our area, and their support in all of this. I think the other thing for me as someone who sails is you know, there's lots of clubs, societies and other groups who organise activities on and in the water, and lots of swimming groups all around the year along the coast, but I wouldn't go in the water myself. And so, you know, some of this is actually working with many partners. The other couple of stats I thought were really important was that actually it's men predominantly that drown. 82% of drowning incidents are men. So there's something about how do we get messages out to men that they can't be the hero in every case, and jumping in the water to do some heroic activity could land them in a lot of trouble. They're more stupid, apparently. Yeah, and I think that's possibly right. And then also that runners and walkers are the biggest group, particularly for inland. And again, it might be because a pet's gone in and someone goes in after a pet and gets into trouble. But 35% of accidental drownings are people who are running and walking and had no intention really of getting into the water. They were just going alongside it. So I think, you know, the links to the work of the flooding and coastal erosion team, the links to our countryside teams in terms of how we make them riverbanks safe or work on open bodies of water, and bits of water that we wouldn't expect people to go into that they will go into. So particularly children and culverts and some of the dangers of that, which has knock-on effects in terms of maintaining those spaces safely and the water. So I think it's really useful. I had one little comment, which was there's a flow chart towards the back, which I really struggled with. And it's on page 28 of the report, which is 457 of our papers. And it sort of highlights two things, whether the lifeguard is on duty or the lifeguard is off duty. And I thought it was addressed to the lifeguard on duty, you know, the lifeguard when they're on duty and the lifeguard when they're off duty. But it's probably more about whether a bit of water, it has a lifeguard and they are there, or whether it's a place that's never got a lifeguard or the lifeguard is off duty. So I think the language there could be slightly simpler in terms of the expectations on people. But brilliant piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Nope, I can't see any. So I think we will take this one to a vote, please, unless Councillor Herriot wants to add anything else. Go on then.
At the risk of elongating what we know is going to be a long meeting, I'd just like to agree that obviously it's really good that the RNLI are based here and very helpful, and they do provide lifeguards on our beaches as well. A service that I'm going to remind people, as I like to, that is non-statutory, and we work very hard to make sure that they are still with us. I think it's important to note that the general statistics on inland thing, rather than one that's specifically to BCP. Obviously, we've had some really significant events in recent years where sadly people have lost their lives in and around the harbour and the bay. Yeah, I think probably stick with a lot of people that were maybe more involved at the time. And yes, people will do silly things around water. I think my daughter took great joy in showing me a TikTok of someone attempting to jump the Bourne stream and falling backwards. Now, obviously, they were surrounded by people, but should they have decided to do that on their own, there is a really significant risk there. And yes, it was a man that attempted that. I can't say I'm in a hurry to get in the water at this point in the year either. And yeah, and as a working document, we're more than happy to look at the flowchart as well.
Thank you, Councillor Herriot. Okay, so I'm going to ask Cabinet if they agree with the recommendations. Can I see an indication, please? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 13, which is the highway searches charging policy. I believe Councillor Hadley is going to be presenting this report. Is there someone to second, please?
I believe I'm seconding it, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Over to you, Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, so this relates to highway searches that the authority conduct as a result of queries from the public and developers, and there's about 1,000 of them a year. We don't currently charge for them. Many other authorities do. So this is about introducing a schedule of charging for that.
Brill, thank you. Can I see if anyone wants to speak on this item who wasn't on Cabinet? Can't see any indications. Anyone on Cabinet wishing to speak on this? No, again, quite a straightforward paper for us. So I will take this to a vote and see if all those in favour of the recommendation can indicate. Thank you, that's unanimous. Right, on to our next item, which is number 14, our place and environment traffic regulation orders for 20-mile-per-hour neighbourhood in the Winton and Moordown area. I think Councillor Herriot is going to be presenting this item. Oh no, Councillor Hadley is going to be Councillor Herriot is going to be presenting this item. Is there someone to second this one, please?
Well, it better be me, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Herriot.
So pleased to be kicking off, I think, Traffic Fest, which is the next few papers. But at the outset, I do need to make an amendment to our recommendation. It was left over from TAG, and so we need to change the recommendation from what it is to a very simple A, the scheme as per Appendix 1 is implemented as advertised. So this is the proposal to implement a 20-mile-an-hour zone across the Winton Moordown neighbourhood. The delivery of a commitment made in April 2024. Interesting to follow the item highlighted by the chair of the ONS committee earlier that we consulted on this using randomised sample surveys, as well as self-selecting and some on-street. The evidence is clear that these were supported by a majority in the areas that by people that live in these areas. 20 miles an hour improves safety for all road users, especially vulnerable road users, reducing the number and severity of collisions, reducing congestion, supporting air quality, noise reduction, and making places just generally nicer to be. Improving the safety that people can walk and cycle around in has a positive impact on people's willingness to do just that, which can have a positive public health impact. And so this is the formal TRO process. and it was broken down into postcodes of the areas affected. And although the overall one was very balanced, if you take the postcodes of people that are living in these areas, they remain supportive. So I am therefore asking Cabinet to agree to the progression of the TRO as advertised.
Thank you very much, Councillor Herritt. Any councillors wishing to speak on this item who are not on Cabinet? Councillor Rigby.
Thanks, Leader. This time I'm just speaking as the ward councillor for Winton East, and I think it's all to say finally we're here. And yeah, very, very grateful this process has been gone through. Everyone I've been speaking to, residents and businesses who are in the Winton East ward, which I think is the only ward which is fully covered by this 20 mph zone, are generally either really pleased to be seeing it coming in and are looking forward to living on a 20 mph road, or are ambivalent about it. There's not a lot of dissent from wanting it, and I think the initial consultation on this was done really well, and the split of the way the surveys were done, both in person, online, and sample surveys as well, was one that we can probably learn a lot from in getting the results of what people who live in the area are actually thinking and knowing that they are people from that area. So yeah, looking forward to seeing this go in place. The one thing I couldn't find is what date we're going to be expecting this to go live. If you could give me any guidance on that, it'd be appreciated. But otherwise, looking forward to coming back, say, a year after that, and looking at the impact that the 20 mph has had, and hopefully seeing a large reduction in accidents in Winton East. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Carr-Brown.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, as somebody who represents a ward that's on the edge of this, in Queen's Park and Charminster, we're very keen to see the effects and see how this goes. I'd also, yes, like to know when it's coming in, and also when the next area will be consulted on, because I know that it's something that my residents have wanted. They're very pleased to have it on their doorstep, but they're also slightly worried that people will sort of speed up when they leave. And for a lot of people, that will be coming into our area. And we do have some hotspots of trouble already on our roads in those, in those adjacent areas. So I'd be very keen to know when the next area is going to be consulted on, please. And yes, also to echo the way that this consultation was done, it does seem to have been one of the better ones. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Carr-Brown. I can't see any further indication. Oh, Councillor George Farquhar.
Yes, indeed, Leader. I just wanted to. I wasn't planning to speak on this because I don't neighbour the ward concerned for the 20 mph. However, I do live on a road where it changes from 20 to 30, and that road also had micro asphalt, asphalt treatment, which is kind of a slurry, which they hope might improve or extend the life of the road surface. That fear that Councillor Carr-Brown mentions about speeding up directly at the limit or slowing down actually has a huge impact on that surface. And even though it's less than 4 years that it went down, it is now torn up by the fact that there is a change in the speed of the traffic. So it's from that perspective, perhaps my question to Cabinet is what with dealing with the structure of the highways, what feedback will come back from this trial? Because we obviously, as Councillor Rigby said, we want to see from a year hence as regards that change of momentum for traffic. And this is a residential road, so it's not commercial traffic that's causing that particular issue, but it is tearing up those surfaces, which we, as a local authority, have said, well, that will extend the life of our roads, but in reality, it's not hitting the 10-year mark because the driving behaviour actually physically changes due to the 20 mph speed limit, either to slow down, brake heavily, or to speed up directly coming out of it. Just my own personal experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. I can't see any other indications, so I will go over to Cabinet, please. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Leader.
Yes, it's really interesting that you know, when we started on this journey, there weren't that many places that had 20-mile-an-hour zones elsewhere. But increasingly, when you look at rural Dorset, every community wants 20 miles in their area. Obviously, a countrywide implementation in urban space in Wales, and the data locally where we've got 20-mile-an-hour it has reduced the number of crashes, the number of injury accidents, which is what this is all about. I think it's really interesting in terms of what Councillor Farquhar has just mentioned in terms of the micro asphalt, because I see it at bus stops too, where buses are turning in and out the stop, particularly when they're off road. That motion creates furrows in the highway surface, and it is actually a good argument for looking at area wide rather than at individual areas. So we have historically been doing just 21 hours outside schools for short stretches or particular parts of roads, and actually looking in a much more holistic way is better for the residents and also better for the road surface. I'll try and take that up with our highways maintenance team, so I'm sure they won't want to know that the road is being ripped up in those sorts of locations, but and there are surfacing treatments they could probably do if that stays there. I think one of our challenges really is the costs of doing this across the area, and initially this is about signs and roundels and not about physical measures. But if it has that sort of unintended consequence, then that's a challenge to the maintenance of the highway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Leader. I think unfortunately I'm going to have to abstain on this item. It's with a really, really heavy heart, and I've been actually kind of deciding whether I want to as we've been speaking. But for me, I think when we brought this through 2 years ago now, I had told residents and other councillors when we brought it through council and trying to convince them that primary and secondary roads wouldn't be too heavily affected. And I think there's just a slight slither of this TRO where that isn't the case, and I think it's just a point of principle that where I've said it to residents, I think I need to kind of stick by that. It's not that I'm not for 20-mile-an-hour zones. I think they're really, really important. I think they will reduce accidents, so it's a real positive thing. I think it's just the fact that I've gone away and said to residents. So yeah, and I think as well, I think going forward, I would be keen to make sure that this is implemented more in the way that we said previously. Although it was 2 years ago and a lot's changed, you know. Yeah, so I think I'm going to have to abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, two very quick points. One is there's a bit of a theme in today's meeting, is it's about safety, and we talked about the safety in relation to the parking charge proposal, and obviously on water safety. So I'm very much in favour of this the TRO of the 20 miles an hour, and if I were asked to have it in parts of my ward, I certainly would, because speeding is a huge issue, even in Highcliffe, as well as the rest of the conurbation. The main point I wanted to mention was that I think Councillor Carr-Brown and also Councillor Rigby talked about the consultation around this, or the previous consultation, which obviously was really robust and really good. And because Councillor Salmon had raised the consultation working party paper earlier on, I just wanted to just to point out that consultation sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap, and that's mainly around the noise made by people who want to hijack consultations. So this one is a really good. The previous 20-mile-an-hour one is a really good example, and Plan for Play was a really good example of where consultation makes a difference, and the bus routes consultation was again one where the input and constructive input from members of the public and residents and stakeholders really can make a difference. So I wanted to do a bit of a shout out to Isla and Lisa Stutchby and her team in terms of the work they do for over consultation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Leader. Could I express some sympathy with Councillor Wilson's comments? I must admit that my own view is that looking at residential areas and trying to ensure that those are as safe as possible and introducing 20-mile-an-hour zones is absolutely appropriate. And like Councillor Wilson, I was pleased that when we looked at the original strategy, we thought in terms of through routes and recognised the fact that on through routes, 30 miles an hour is frequently perfectly safe and is desirable in order to maximise traffic flow. But I do also recall, whilst I share that bit of concern, I also recall that when we looked at that strategy, we recognised that there would be parts of those through routes where there would be a need or a desirability to introduce 20-mile-an-hour zones. And those would include areas where there are quite a number of shops on either side. And I think in terms of my own ward, where Southbourne Grove, for example, whilst it is in one sense a through route, should nevertheless, when we get to that area, become a 20-mile-an-hour section, which I would fully support. So in terms of this particular proposal, I can totally see the rationale that there are parts of the through routes which will be designated 20, and that is as it should be given the nature of those sections of road, and as has been indicated, given the accident rates that have been identified there. So I've got some sympathy for his concerns. I don't agree with his conclusion because it was thought out originally at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. I can't see any other indications, so I was just going to add some of my thoughts as well, particularly on the consultation for this. I think it was a really, really thorough consultation, but particularly around the sampling. Like it's been a consultation that has led to a very evidence-based solution and decision for us in Cabinet. I'm really pleased with how that went, and I think we want to continue that as we start consulting on areas in the future. I'm also really aware of that feeling of displacement, and I have experience of this because my ward is 20 miles per hour, which is one of the largest, in fact, the largest 20-mile-per-hour area in the conurbation at the moment, although it won't be for much longer, I don't think. But it's been in place for about 20 years now, I would have thought, maybe 15 to 20 years, and there is a real sense of change when you leave one of the main trunk roads, so Old Road, Ringwood Road, Ashley Road or Herb Avenue, and you go past that 20 miles per hour sign, because what it does is it signals to people this is a residential area, slow down. Not just because that's the legal thing to do, but also that feeling of it being somewhere where you might have children around crossing the roads, where you might have people walking their dogs, where there's cars going in and out of driveways, and there is that kind of heightened sense of being aware of the people around you. And I can see, you know, that line where we go from Winton into Charminster. It is slightly worrying that we will displace some of that traffic going that wants to use the Winton area as a cut through. So I'm really keen that we crack on with our next areas soon and make sure that we're not just displacing a level of people cutting through. But I can really endorse 20-mile-per-hour areas. In my area, even though we do have a level of traffic calming measures as well, there are areas that we don't have traffic calming measures, and I'm really pleased that we have a volunteer community speed watch. There has often been a rumour that they can't operate in 20-mile-per-hour zones, but they can, and they're really, really good for educating drivers, giving that communicating to drivers that speeding is not acceptable, and also being able to educate and inform people about the risks of speeding, particularly in very residential areas. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Councillor Herrett to sum up, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to colleagues for their comments. I would just remind everyone that we call them collisions rather than accidents, and it's much more preferable that we do so. When we went to TAG, officers said they were hopeful for implementation in early summer. If we seal it in a few moments, then they will crack on. We're also looking at consultation on the next area in the same time frame. I can offer reassurance it's our intention to consult in very much the same way as we have done so far. I think I'd also be interested to see an impact on the highway structure, as Councillor Farquhar said. There hasn't been much research on that to my knowledge, but our head of transport is also our head of infrastructure, so I'm sure he'll be happy to examine whether that does have a positive impact. I can only imagine it would do so, as pressure from braking would reduce that. We do have support from the bus company, and this process has led to us picking up issues where they are having things that are slowing them down in areas and slowing their progress down, often parked vehicles, some legal, some illegal, building on our theme from earlier. When this paper came through Cabinet and Council, we did commit to implementation across neighbourhoods on the premise that it would improve safety, with primary routes left to a degree. But areas of high footfall, lots of crossings, and it's clear from our data that that's where a lot of our collisions are happening, in what some people would consider of these routes. And I do think Councillor Wilson's point is an interesting consideration. Where some people might consider these places arterial routes because of how they use them. For the residents in these areas, they're also just part of their daily lives. They're the road that they cross to see friends or family, get to school, get to the bus, pop to the shop. And I think if you pass along Charminster Road and use it as arterial, you might think of that. But I think for a lot of the residents that live in and just around that area, they probably think of it quite differently to us. So I think as we go forward, we'll be examining all that evidence and making sure we're trying to make as balanced decisions as we can. So I'm really pleased that we're hopefully able to move this forward and make the improvements to these neighbourhoods as laid out.
Thank you very much, Councillor Herriott. Councillor Hadley?
I'm sorry, could I just correct something that Councillor Herriott said? The head of infrastructure is not the same person as the head of highways. The one deals with the planning and the other deals with the structural maintenance, and we also have the environment team that deal with the potholes. So there's actually 3 teams involved.
Thank you. It takes a lot of people to look after our roads, doesn't it? Okay, so we are going to take this item to a vote. The recommendation is in line with what TAG also recommended to Cabinet, and that we implement these TROs as advertised. Can I see all those in favour of the recommendation, please? Thank you. That is not quite unanimous. All those abstaining? Thank you. And none against. Okay, so I'm going to suggest that we take a 10-minute break whilst we're nearly at the 2-hour mark, and then we'll come back and finish off these agenda items. So we will be back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to our Cabinet meeting. We're going to go straight on to agenda item 15, which is our place and environment and the Local Transport Consolidated Fund Programme for 26-27. Councillor Hadley is going to be proposing this item. Is there someone to second it, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Herritt. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, so this has had a name change, but has been something that we get every year. So the Local Transport Plan Fund has been our capital allocation from government, and what they've done is they've taken that and various other grants that we get on transport theme and combine them into one settlement. So table 2 within the report highlights all of the different grants that are coming in, and some of those now have revenue elements to them. So it's a grant of revenue money from government as well as just being capital. And that's obviously helpful in terms of the effort involved in implementing these schemes, because we've obviously been working on the Transforming Travel programme, and that was huge compared to our normal run-of-the-mill investment on the highways, and we therefore had to use some external expertise. So this highlights the core really that hasn't changed much is about £10 million, and 7 million of that is on maintenance. And there's tables in terms of how that's broken down. So it was mentioned already the micro surfacing, which is about extending the life of a road that's not gone too far, keeping moisture out of it so the moisture doesn't break up the road surface. And the reason we've had so many potholes in the recent past is because it's been such a wet spring. The last couple of months, the rainfall, I think in Cornwall, they were saying until a couple of days ago, it had rained every single day since Christmas. And it's not that far off that here. And I've seen reports from the leader of Hampshire County Council and from one of the MPs in Somerset Council with exactly the same challenge that we have in terms of the unprecedented demand on the services. And Kate, the service director for environment, is here, and her team have been working flat out over time. The number of times when the same pothole gets reported extends the problem, because the team are then having to deduplicate those. So there's £7 million on various aspects of maintenance, and the local transport plan, the local transport grant improvements, and we talked again about safety earlier. Significant part of that around pedestrian crossings, and the next element of the 20-mile-an-hour programme, and prioritised casualty reductions and safer links to schools being a really key area. There is a line element in there around the major junction outside Bournemouth Hospital, Deansea Junction. That's going to be a huge scheme. So this is about renewing the traffic signals, but hopefully doing what we can to improve that, because it's absolutely dreadful to cross as a pedestrian. I think you've got to wait about 6 times in order to cross that road. So it's really difficult. So that's that element of the programme. There's also the electric vehicle charging, which is a Levi grant, and the bus grant, which we've talked about previously, but is also the next item on the agenda, and the active travel grant. And because we managed to convince Active Travel England of our delivery, we've managed to become a level 3 authority, one of only 11 in the country, and that's doubled the amount of money that we get from them under this grant as part of this. So that's the programme.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Are there any members not on Cabinet wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Carr-Brown. We're going to do them as separate items. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, over to Cabinet. Councillor Herritt.
Thank you, Leader. You won't find me that complimentary about government at the moment, but a multi-year funding settlement for transport is very welcome. It allows officers to plan, design schemes, creating a pipeline with some certainty that they're not going to have anything, or that they will have something to follow through with that the next year. It's also pleasing to see that following our decision just now to seal the 20-mile-an-hour scheme, we'll be continuing to fund schemes at a hopefully improved rate. tackle more crossings. Safer routes to school is a really kind of popular item as well, where people are looking to really plug in and making those spaces around schools safer for children and young people to get in and out. I actually went across the aforementioned junction at the hospital yesterday, and can totally confirm it's an absolute nightmare. I think there's 6 button presses to get from one side of the road to the other, and very slow. And it's such a heavily trafficked area in terms of both cars and pedestrian, as they're looking to kind of either use hospital, Tesco, and make their way through. So yeah, really pleased to see this coming through.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? I think I was just going to highlight the pie chart that we have on page 605 of the Cabinet pack, which shows, you know, where this funding, where consolidated capital funding is going. You know, over 36% is going on maintenance of our roads, 18% from the local authority bus grant, and I think it really exemplifies the a level of change that is going on in our area, but maintenance remains a really key priority when it comes to ensuring our roads are not just safe but are up to standard. And I'm really pleased that we've had consistent notification and endorsement from national organisations about our road surfaces. And I would agree with Councillor Hadley, this has been a particularly wet 2 months. And I think we should thank the teams for being out in that weather and actually getting on and doing a really good job of filling in potholes and fixing our roads. And I certainly know there's a lot of gratitude in my community for the speed at which some of this is dealt with. I'll go back to Councillor Hadley. Anything else to add on this item?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think just a rider on the 3-year settlement being welcome. I'd echo what Councillor Herriott said, but we were quite good at bidding for and getting money previously, and so there's a little bit bittersweet there in terms of having been able to attract the money in. We're not going to get extra money easily. So where previously there were things that we could bid for, sometimes with very short timelines, that world has rather moved away. So it is more, this is kind of what we've got, so what we've got to work within. I think your point about the pothole repairs, last time I inquired last week, there were 1,600 open jobs. The team, you know, the volume of work that's going through is huge, and it's not a huge team. And as I say, I'm really grateful to them for keeping on top of the avalanche, really, and some of the complaints about that they're just sticking stuff in, and you know they are doing what they can to keep their highways safe. There have been exhortations from some quarters to sue the council for damage to your car. Well, actually, 80% of those claims we successfully reject, because we have a good regime of attempting to solve issues as they're raised with us and dealing with them quickly. And so, I you know, if you do suffer significant damage, then clearly, you know, that you're welcome to seek redress. But actually, you know, don't do it if you haven't really got a strong case, because it's just wasting everyone's time, and that's time that they really need to be getting on with fixing the problems and moving forward. So I'd encourage people to let the teams get on with it, to advise them if there's something they see that hasn't been fixed, because that may well be that we just don't know about it.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Okay, we will take this item to a vote. So this is Cabinet voting to then recommend it onto Council. Can I see all those in favour of the recommendations in the paper? Thank you, that is unanimous. So we'll now go on to item 16, which is our place and environment and the active travel funding for 26-27. Councillor Hadley will present this report. Can I ask for someone to second that one, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Herriott. Councillor Hadley, over to you, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the reason I mentioned it in the previous report is it's a line item within the previous report, so that this is specifically looking at how we spend the allocation that is available to us. It's nearly £3 million across capital and revenue, and again, it's sort of a continuation of what we've been trying to do, but trying to look particularly at key routes that have gaps in them, and trying to fill some of those gaps to make it a cohesive route. Because one of the complaints you get from people is, oh, well, the cyclists aren't on the cycle lane. Often that's because it's not continuous, or that their journey doesn't involve the route that entirely takes. So we are looking at a range of delivery and some design work to be done for the future, including one that I know Councillor Carr-Brown is very keen on, and we'll probably talk about in a moment. There's also an element around cycle parking and security of having your bike still there when you get back to it is a key area, and one where we're trying to look to do something in the district centres, not just in the town centre. So there is a secure parking. It's a converted shop in Poole Town Centre, but this is probably more looking at secure storage that would be by the roadside. For people to park their bikes. I think the other really important bit in terms of cycle routes is they're used by all sorts of people. They are used by people with scooters, but also by people with mobility devices, because it's actually a nicer surface to be on. And so they're kind of misnamed. They're probably more micro mobility routes. Really, that's.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. So, Councillor Carr-Brown, would you like to come up and speak on this item, please?
Yes, unshockingly, I do want to thank you, Leader. And Councillor Hadley uncharacteristically undersells me. I'm actually excited about at least two of the things in this report. But yeah, and it also, I just wanted to pick up on quickly something from a couple of items ago on the 20 mile an hour, and at the point that Councillor Wilson raised, he was no doubt referring to Charminster Road. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that a through route for some people is actually where their house is, and also importantly for the people I represent, it's a school route. It's a way to get up to the schools on Eastway for a lot of children, and they're getting off buses and they're crossing the road, etc., etc. So it's about those different uses, and I really welcome. I mean, I'm bordering on overjoyed about two of the things here. Particularly, I put a lot of work in last year around trying to get a crossing on Queen's Park Avenue, where Howard Road meets it, because it's so heavily used by school children, and I'm extremely glad that there's been a recognition, if you like, or we've shifted the active travel to those school routes so comprehensively in this. And I also welcome the crossing up near Westway that will be part of this design, the design work for this year, which I also recommended in a report that I gave to portfolio holders after consulting with all the schools. So it's about creating entire areas where children and their parents and families can use these routes more safely. And actually, what you end up delivering, if you can really shift some of that school traffic off the roads, you end up giving people, yes, perhaps they might be moving at 20 miles an hour, but they're moving reliably at 20 miles an hour, and their journeys become predictable and easier, and hopefully less stop-start, less frustrating, and all of those things that I know I experience as a driver as well. So I really welcome how we're using this money. I thank the team. Brilliant that they've got their, it's level 3, isn't it? I think it's referred to, that the councillors got that. We have an excellent team working on this, full of vision and professionalism. And yes, I can't wait to see those crossings.
Thank you, Councillor Carr-Brown. Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Can't see any other indications, so I'll go to Cabinet. No? I was just going to add my support as well. I think in particular, what I'm excited about with this active travel fund is really things like providing the new crossings on some of those pinch points that we see are quite risky. I think we do have an amazing team there, really visionary, and I encourage them. I think we encourage them to think, you know, what's next, what's coming up. But what I did just want to mention as well is there is still so much more to do to increase the safety across our areas. I think this is absolutely right, but I think that, you know, the next rounds of these funding, particularly the capital, are going to be really important. I think we need to be pushing government for more funding to encourage people to think about active means of travel. I think Councillor Carl Brown is absolutely right. You know, the more people who we can get you travelling to and from school by other means, I think is quite demonstrated when we get to the holidays and into half term. And of course, that is a reduction in people travelling around. But the world is really shifting with things like working from home. And I think the aim here is safety, accessibility, but it's also about predictability and making sure that our roads flow in the right way. And if we are to reach the housing standards that have been applied to us through government mandatory targets for housing, we need to be very, very serious about how we move that many people around the conurbation and reduce that congestion rather than just contribute towards it. Okay, so I'll go back to Councillor Hadley. Anything else to add?
Thank you. Yes, well, I'm pleased that Councillor Carl Brown is ecstatic, but I do have to say that the team worked really hard in terms of the data. So it is about volumes of children and places that are important. So she brought that to our attention, but it's, you know, they have looked carefully at it was not least because I tested them to try and make sure that that was the case, and that we weren't just responding to an individual request, because the problem is so huge in terms of across the area. One of the things I forgot to mention under the revenue allocation, there's and again, it's actually because the lead on this is really excited about this, is the safer active school journeys. And it's looking at 3 school clusters, one of which is the East Way and the schools up around that area. Another one is Poole High School, and the other one's Twynham in Christchurch. And trying to look at holistically at the journeys, because a school street shouldn't just be about outside the school. It is about what affects your journey and where we can get sort of cohorts of children that are have their journey made safer and parents comfortable to let their children travel independently. Then that has a really big impact. So it's not just about at the school gate. The other thing in terms of schools traffic is the reduction, obviously, in holiday time, is because the parents are also on holiday, so their normal journeys are not happening. So it's not all about the impact of the school itself. It is also the time when families take a break and maybe aren't on the road themselves doing other journeys. So that's part of the reduction. It's not all about the schools. It's about all of us and how we all choose to travel. Which again is why some of these routes are really important, not just for the impact for schools, but the impact for encouraging people to feel safe taking journeys by other means. So that's a really important part. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Okay, so we are going to be recommending this to Council. Can I see all those in favour of that recommendation, please? Thank you, that's unanimous. So we'll move on to agenda item 17, which is our place in environment and the local authority bus grant for 26 and 27. Certainly lots of transport items today. Councillor Hadley is going to be presenting this. Is there someone to second this one, please?
Yeah, very happy to second, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Okay, over to you, Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Yes, so again, this is a continuation, and as Councillor Herrick's already highlighted, we have a 3-year settlement from government for revenue, but actually a 4-year settlement for capital, which does allow us to multi-year thinking in terms of where and how we made changes. And it really interestingly, at County Gates, we made a slight tweak to that roundabout to improve the bus delays, and it's actually saved everybody on the highway about 50 seconds from the calculations. So it's, you know, it's of benefit to car drivers that we put in something under the bus service improvement plan to improve the punctuality of buses. And I think that is the nature of a lot of what we do is to try and meet multiple requirements. So this continues the programme. There's significant projects around the priorities from Bournemouth Station down to the town centre, and that some of that work is already underway. And and how we support buses where they get delayed throughout the conurbation, and continued investment on that. We work very closely with the bus company through the quality partnership to try and identify those things that will improve the service, and in response they invest in better buses and more buses. And that's not just their name, they have actually invested in more new buses. So that's really helpful. And also responding to, so we've had discussions around ticketing, particularly for school children, initially to put it on an app so that they could reduce the price for children's passes. And then when we said, well, hang on a minute, we've got a problem with mobile phones in schools and issues around bullying, they've now gone back to a smart card. So they've responded to our requests, the things that come through council or through from members of the public. We do feed through, and we do make that happen. And some of the promotions with businesses to have commuter fares and evening fares and things like that. So we and some of it is about experimentation. It is about trying out new things, which as we saw in the paper that came through Cabinet recently, they've accepted that some of the bus routes that we used to subsidise, they now run on a commercial basis, and that's part of our function, is to try and keep testing that and make sure that we're putting our investment in the right places to improve, to test, to find ways that might actually take off and become commercially viable.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Anyone not on Cabinet wishing to speak on this? Can't see any indication. So we will go to Cabinet. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, never let a bus paper go past without commenting on it. Yeah, I really welcome this. I think I talked quite a bit last year about the bus service improvement plan funding, and really welcome the sort of development of what's being funded in this year's proposed plan. I myself have benefited from some of the, what's been brought in by the bus services improvement plan. This morning I got the new trial service number 11 to come here for the meeting using my £1 commuter club ticket. And I'm glad to see that the commuter club's going to be, it's going to be continued. And I think, we have recently heard statements about sort of the declining bus service in the area, which I just couldn't be further from the truth. The area I live in North Poole, it used to be the case that actually if you were in central Bournemouth and Poole and Christchurch, they're on the high frequency routes, it was great. You got loads of buses on the high frequency routes, but actually the outlying areas were sort of poorly serviced. Well, that's no longer the case where I am in North Poole. Every 15 minutes there's a bus to Bournemouth now. That was never the case before. And to be honest, I don't think bus services have ever been better than they are now in my part of the conurbation. So I really sort of welcome the sort of targeted investment that's happening here, and the investment in sort of keeping fares low. And lots of people talk about the things they don't like about public transport, and they talk about the Poole bus station, and we've got hundreds of thousands of pounds here being invested in capital into Poole bus station, but also in revenue. Reopening the toilets and keeping them clean, and actually maintaining the bus station in a sort of clean state is part of the funding within this bus service improvement plan. And what I'm also pleased to see, I'm pleased to see the sort of continuation of the commuter club £1 tickets for people travelling to work, the £2 multi-trip bundle, so only £2 a ticket if you buy bundles on the app. But for me, the last one on that revenue list is a real game changer. The concessionary fares travel during peak times for job holders, to a trial to enable disabled passengers with concessionary fares entitlement to travel before 9:30 AM for £1 single fare, to enable them to access employment, education and volunteering opportunities. That's such a step forward. It's been talked about for a long time about, their disabled concessionary bus pass only comes in at 9:30, can it be extended to before that? So the fact that we're now going to be funding for £1 single fare for that time for people with a disabled concessionary bus pass, I think is really to be welcomed, and that'll be great for a lot of people who receive our sort of support from adult social care services actually. So to get to college or get to employment opportunities. So I really welcome that. We've got part of our adult social care strategies actually about encouraging sort of people into employment, people with disabilities into employment, and this sort of feeds into that as well. So yeah, so much of here I could talk about and really welcome it, and but I've got to cut it short because I've got to get the new number 21 bus to the station in a minute. So
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other councillors wishing to speak on this one? The area I wanted to highlight, which Councillor Hadley has referred to, is the reduced price day rider ticket for and unlimited travel in the BCP area for young people at weekends. I often have councillors from all across the chamber who, you know, look at London and say they're offering free transport for children and young people, which is a fantastic policy, but because we operate in partnership with a private company, we have this revenue stream to be able to offer something similar, but at that reduced rate of £2. With that £180,000, I really hope that we create a culture of young people who are confident getting the bus, who feel that it's an appropriate form of transport. It certainly takes me back to my youth with a £2 day rider going into town, into Poole, then up to Bournemouth, then over to Castle Point and back again, and just spending a day going all across the conurbation. And I think that's really helped. Really helps young people see what is around them and makes it so much more accessible, getting to different places, and also learning and understanding the bus network for itself and the fantastic service that we do have. I mean, where I am, Ashley Road, there is a bus there, the M1 or M2, every 3 minutes. You know, it is an absolutely fantastic service. And we are really, really lucky to have a strong partnership with Moorbus. And I think that there is a huge amount of good news in this paper about what we are able to offer in partnership with them through the local authority bus grant, both in terms of capital and revenue. Okay, so we will take this one to a vote. Oh no, we will go back to Councillor Hadley to sum up, please.
Thank you. Ever so quickly, because I think the bit about children is really important, but it's not statutory. You know, and again, it's part of this thing. We have to provide the over 65s with a bus pass. They don't have to use. Sorry, over 67s. They don't have to use it, and that's their choice. But every time they use it, we have to pay. And similarly, you know, a lot of these, it is public money that is funding these subsidies, and that's why we're trying to be wise and cute about how we ensure that these things are making a difference and enabling them to extend the service to more people. And particularly that thing about the disabled, have to make it free, but actually it's part of monitoring it and making sure that it's valued and something we can report on.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Okay, so we will take a vote on these recommendations. These are recommendations to Council. Can I see all those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you, that's unanimous. Right, so we go on to agenda item 18, which is Our Place and Environment BCP Council Lane Rental Scheme. Councillor Herritt is going to be introducing this Councillor Hadley is going to be introducing this item. Can I see if we have someone to second this one, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Hadley, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm sorry. So there are a lot of things that Councillor Herritt and I overlap on, and we do our best to work together on. This is a really important area in terms of trying to keep the conurbation moving, and it's something we've been trying to do for a little while. We've gone out and consulted on it and had a lot of approval from people, unless they happen to work for a utility company, because the utility companies are not that keen. They're going to have to spend more money if they occupy their network. But it's not about making money. It's actually about trying to change behaviours and to get them to get off of the highway as quickly as they can, particularly on our key traffic sensitive routes. The legislation allows us to identify up to 10% of the network to be included in lane rental scheme, and so we've had a bit of a struggle to try and make sure we get 9.8%, I think it is, of the network, so we're within that target, and that means it doesn't include things like Wessex Way or the Christchurch bypass, because they're dual carriageways. So generally, unless it's a major resurfacing as we had on the Christchurch bypass, there will be some flow around them occupying part of the lane. And it also includes emergency work. So for emergency work, they can have 2 days for free. If they're collaborating with other utility providers, then they can have some time for free. and the charges also apply to us as a council, where we're doing work on the sensitive network. We will also get charged for it, in the sense that we also need to be smart about how we do things. The money that comes in will be partially invested in potholes and in supporting maintenance of the highway, and partly in encouraging innovation. And so they can earn some of that money back in showing that they're using innovative techniques to be quicker off the highway, and less impact on congestion. So I hope it will be a really welcome move. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. I can't see anyone who isn't on Cabinet wishing to speak on this item. So I'll go to Cabinet, please. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Just two brief points. One is, I think those of us who are drivers, in fact, all drivers probably just get really frustrated when they go past roadworks, that where there's no one appearing to be working for days on end, and you keep going and you think, what the heck is going on here? So I'm hoping that will address some of the issues that we see on that on a daily basis. The second thing really is about safety. It's about safety. We talked about safety earlier on, and I think, you know, and I can't. I'm not putting myself in the frame for this, but people who get stuck in roadworks, particularly when they're frustrated, they're late, and then when they get through the roadworks, they probably put their foot down and try to make up time. And I think, again, something else that will help is getting these roadworks off quicker than they have been in the past. And I think that's a really key point. So it takes us back again to the issue of safety as well as everything else. And finally, so Councillor had mentioned potholes, and it was really remiss of me earlier on, because when we were talking about the funding, the capital funding, I meant to speak and say I wanted to thank Kate Langdown and her team. I went round, took pictures of 20 potholes in Highcliffe, sent them in, and they're all done in about 4 days. So thank you very much. Great work. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Herrick.
I think one of the most exciting aspects of this is the innovation fund it creates, and really kind of allowing, I assume ourselves as a council, but also the utility kind of providers to really dig into finding innovative ways of trying to reduce disruption and the congestion that they impact. And I think, you know, there's some examples cited, such as, you know, sideways drilling going in from an alternative angle to try and reach some of the services, or we're already seeing kind of you know, blown through pipes to line pipes that are already there, and refresh that way. So I think I'm really excited about what that could potentially bring and provide. And there are more and more local authorities doing this around the country. So hopefully some of those using that same funding formula will stumble upon some of these schemes that will really hopefully make a difference.
Thank you, Councillor Herrick. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just quickly picking up on that, actually, I know a lot of the electricity network providers, because even in the last couple of weeks, I've been in meetings with them discussing the need for increased amount of street works in the coming years because of massively having to upgrade our electricity networks, particularly to cope with new data warehouses, and the increased need for electricity in the home for car charging and for heat pumps and everything else. So I know a lot of the sort of electricity network providers are aware that there could be pressure to increase the amount of street work. So I think this is perfectly timed, because, like Councillor Herrick says, you know, there are innovative ways of working that they'll be looking to develop, because they don't want to be paying extra. And so there is already a tension at the electricity network level about trying to sort of manage the need for street works and actually work more effectively to reduce that. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. And I just wanted to refer in the paper that it's the evidence from other areas, from London, from Kent, from Surrey, and from West and East Sussex, shows that the congestion is reduced by between 9 and 25%. And I know we often hear from all sorts of sectors actually about the impact of congestion on things like growth, on things like being able to reach medical appointments, on various other aspects of all our lives, whether you travel by car or by bike or on the bus. Congestion caused by roadworks always feels frustratingly avoidable, and I'm really excited. I think this actually will be transformative for our area in reducing the amount of congestion that we get due to those roadworks. So this one is for a decision that we're going to recommend to Council. So I would like to ask Cabinet to indicate if you agree with those recommendations to Council. Thank you. That's unanimous. I do have to apologise. I've realised I haven't come back to Councillor Hadley to sum up. Was there anything you wanted to add?
If you don't mind, Leader, yes, it's just a couple of things. 30 to 40% of the utilities works are emergency works currently, and I think that we hopefully will see a slight behaviour change there. Some of it, particularly for the gas utility supplier, they've got to leave the road open to let the off gas go. So sometimes nothing's happening for a reason, but it's not always, and sometimes you feel it's just because they're batching up the work. And if the major routes are more clear, then people won't be using the minor, less suitable routes quite so much. So to get around the roadworks, they go along minor roads past schools and that speed because they're trying to make up time. So I think there's a double whammy there in terms of less wear on roads that weren't built for the levels of traffic, and better safety by keeping people where possible on the major roads because they're actually flowing better. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Councillor Hadley. Okay, so we have actually covered items 19, 20 and 21, which were the children's papers we took at the start of this meeting. So we will move on to agenda item 22, which is urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive in accordance with the Constitution. Chief Executive, anything to report?
No urgent decisions have been taken.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 23 is the Cabinet Forward Plan, which has been published and is part of these papers and also available on the Council website. Before we close the meeting, we are looking at changing the date of the next Cabinet meeting to the 26th, Thursday the 26th of March, rather than the 1st of April. And that is because we head into a pre-election period because of town council elections. So we will be bringing that meeting forward a few days, and I'm sure that will be circulated to councillors. All that's left for me to do is to close the meeting. So I just want to thank everyone who has joined us today and everyone who has contributed. Thank you.